Singer Jessie J has posted a heartbreaking picture on social media where she shared the news that she'd sadly miscarried a baby. Jessie revealed how she was dreading getting through a gig after being told during her third scan that there was no longer a heartbeat. And Linda, I know this kind of brought back memories for you because you've been there.
Yeah. So I always wanted lots of children. So after I had Lauren and then Louis, and then I got pregnant again for the third time and was really excited about it. And had my scans and everything was all right, the first 3-month scan and everything. And then I started to feel a bit strange, you know, when you just know that it's not the same as the other pregnancies and something's not quite right there. So I rang the hospital and asked if I could come in and have another scan. And Mark was at work, the kids were at school, Lauren, and I took Louis with me for the scan, thinking everything would be fine. It's just a little bit morning sickness, she'll be fine. And I got there and they scanned me, and then the nurse went to me, "Oh, I'm just going to have to call somebody in to see you." So I thought, oh, no, that's not sounding good. And Louis was there and that, and the doctor came in and said, "We can't find a heartbeat." So I thought, oh, no. And meanwhile, Mark just turned up from work. He was window cleaning at the time, and he just was passing the hospital, and he thought, I'll pop in and see how the scan goes. And then we were told that I'd have to go home. So you have to go home, and then, you know, the child's...
So knowing
that the child's dead inside you, you then have to go home, and I had to come back the next day. So that was a really hard day, like going home that night knowing that you had to go in and have, you know, suction the next day and that. But the worst thing was, so it was my second child and I was pregnant with this third one, and my dad was down the caravan site, and he saw someone walking towards him, and it had a newspaper and it said, "Birds of a feather star baby dies." And he just immediately thought it was Louis, something had happened to Louis. So he rang me up in a terrible state. He said, "What's happened?" "Oh, my God, are you all right?" I said, "Yeah, I'm all right, Dad." He said, "I thought something had happened to Louis." I said, "No, Dad, I've had a miscarriage." I said, "And like they've had to take the baby away." It would have been a little girl, and they did tests on it, and the baby had an extra chromosome, so it wouldn't have survived anyway. But it was just like a really, really heartbreaking time. And I know lots of friends of mine had miscarriages and gone through it, but I think it was really, really difficult for Mark as well. He said, "Do you think it was something we'd done? Do you think it was like we ate, you know, done?" It was like you go through all these things. Why did it happen? Why was, you know, and that. But
it's interesting though that your body told you there was something about that pregnancy that felt different.
Yeah, it really, really did. Like I'd wake up in the morning and I felt strange. I wasn't really eating as well. I'd lost my appetite and everything. There was all like this point, and I was working at the time as well, you know, like so. But yeah, it is. It's a really, really hard thing, and it's really horrible to talk about as well, you know, like because then when you bump into people, they go, "Sorry to hear about," you know, like, and then it brings it back all the time. Then you get upset and everything. So that took a while to sort of come to terms with it. But
I mean, I think people are kind of sharing their experience of miscarriage more, aren't they? You know, so it's less of a, well, not that it was ever a taboo subject, but, you know, it's less one of those things that you don't talk about. But still, nothing's ever going to prepare you or in some way make that any better. I mean, it's just...
I've had, you know, family members and friends that have gone through, you know, similar situations, and I think one of the things that really sticks out for me is the time. So when you find out that, you know, the baby, there's no heartbeat, and having to wait for it to pass through your body and stuff like that. And I think that's what's, from what I've witnessed, is really the hard thing to deal with, just like
I think the hardest part was going home and then having to go back the next day, you know, like, and sitting there all that night crying and, you know, like thinking, oh, you know, things could have been so different. But then I wouldn't have had my daughter, Bobby, maybe, so, yeah. So
but I think it's, it is important that we talk about it and just let, you know, women, and like you said, you know, men who's going through it know that, you know, it's OK, it's not necessarily their fault, and, you know, you can try again if you want to in your time, in your space.
I mean, there is definitely a grief there, isn't there? Because you're... The minute you get pregnant, you're thinking about what's the baby going to look like and what we're going to call
You're
it.
decorating the nursery,
you know,
at least in your head.
Yeah,
you know.
you've got the whole thing mapped out in your head, and then suddenly someone's saying, you know, I mean, when I was pregnant with Grace, so I was 41 when I got pregnant with Grace, which was pretty much a miracle in itself. But I remember getting bleeding and going to the GP, and she said to me, "I'm really sorry, I think you're losing the baby." And said, "You've got to go to hospital and get a scan." And I remember sitting, it was like a really busy day. I sat there for 4 hours just thinking, well, that's that, you know, and I'm probably never going to get pregnant again because it was, you know, I was that age. And then eventually I got seen, and I was just sort of lying there expecting her to say, you know, I'm afraid you've lost the baby. And then suddenly I heard this doom, doo, doo, doom, doo, 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 you know, the heartbeat on the... And she went, oh, yes, there we go, really strong heartbeat.
Oh,
and,
wow.
and I said, oh, I thought I was losing the baby. And she said, oh, no, apparently a lot of women do get bleeding.
That happened to me with both of my children. I bled beforehand and thought, oh, my gosh, especially the first one, thought I was having a miscarriage. And it's almost mirroring the same thing that happened to you.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad all those three are here to tell the tale, that's for sure.